Hello everyone, welcome to The Rundown. Thanks to AGL. For all your energy needs, go to agl.com.au. Great supporters of the footy club, so if you're a fan or a member, get on board about your energy needs and tell them this man, Andrew Embley, sent you. Of course, Norm Smith-Nellis, Premiership player, and Ryan Daniels from 7 News. Welcome, boys. Speaking of energy, West Coast Eagles have got plenty of it.
Oh, how good were they? I must admit, the first half I was at the movies with the kids watching Aladdin, but I had my phone out. and I was watching. I look at the score at half time and I'm thinking, oh, geez. Got back, watched the last quarter. Oh, look, how many clearances did Luke Shuey have in that last quarter? He was huge. That's a big win. Nothing worse than being in a movie and someone is constantly looking at the glow of a mobile phone. It's a no-go zone for me. I don't care. It was West Coast versus Adelaide.
Don't care,
mate, I'm telling you, it was a win-win. The kids got to watch Aladdin, I got to watch a bit of the footy.
I'm telling you what, if Adam Simpson had a magic lamp and had 3 wishes from a genie, I reckon he would have asked for that exact performance from his club and from Luke Shuey and Elliot Yeo in particular. But they needed a win like that. To be down away 5 goals against a good side after all the mediocre football they've been playing and winning, that was the game where you went, oh, wow, OK, they do still have that gear. We needed to see it, and we saw it.
I love the commentary over in the East as well. Oh, geez, West Coast, bit of a hangover. They're not playing great football. I'll tell you one thing. If you're an opposition club right now, if there is one team you would not want to play in September right now, is the West Coast Eagles. They've got another gear that they can go to. Their midfield is as good as any midfield in the comp when they get going, and their forward line are potent. They kick goals and they score heavily on you.
Andrew Embley in a pointing mood. It must be because he hasn't shaven. And Ryan Daniels also giving the pen a bit of a nudge today as well. You're pointing with the pen, which is a sure sign we're going to have a good show. All right, let's talk about the Crows in Adelaide, and let's go back to round 3 when West Coast beat Collingwood. Ryan, can I ask you first, out of those 2 wins, what was the tougher one? What was more significant and what was tougher about it?
I think going in you would have said Collingwood. Grand final rematch, MCG. Collingwood had a lot to be annoyed about after losing a grand final by a kick. But I think once the game started, West Coast were kind of always in that one. It was a seesawing game. But the Adelaide game, backs against the wall. They should have probably lost that game. And a weaker team, a team that didn't have that gear, might have just packed it in and gone, you know what, it's not our day. So that's why it was tougher, and they gutsed it out. So I was far more impressed with the Adelaide win than I was the Collingwood one, probably because I kind of expected the Pies win because they'd just beaten them, and they're a good side in Melbourne recently. But that game against the Crows, the way they'd been playing, was a danger game, and they showed up.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I've got a different opinion. I reckon when you're at the MCG, remember Collingwood had played their 2 previous games at the G, so they hadn't travelled anywhere. West Coast had already been to Brisbane, played GWS here, and although the score was distorted, my opinion was GWS went okay, and we've seen since then GWS a good side. My view is West Coast could have packed it in a couple of times against Collingwood as well, knowing full well, we've just won a flag, we were here not that long ago. Thought the Adelaide win was great, but I've just got to. My belief is Collingwood are a better side. MCG is a tougher ground for West Coast to win at, as proven. That they don't have any problems winning in Adelaide. I disagree with you on that one. What about you?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you too, Tim. Grand final replay, round 3. No one gave West Coast a chance for whatever reason. They thought Collingwood were going to bounce back, and all this redemption about losing the grand final. And West Coast went over there after, as you said, losing that first game to Brisbane, and they found a way to knock them off. I thought the win obviously was very good against Adelaide.
Which one meant more in the context of the season, where they're at? In that round 3 win or this one here?
But you're comparing round 3 to round 10. The season's moved a third of the way down. So obviously the most recent. But let's think about the mental approach to it all, where West Coast could have said, you know what, so what? They can have these 4 points because we beat them last time here in a grand final, and you can sit on your laurels. And that goes back to that question about, as you mentioned before, Embers, in regards to a hangover, so to speak, the hangover. I thought it was enormous to beat Collingwood at the MCG, and not too many teams are going to right through this year.
One thing's for sure, they've got a very big psychological advantage, both over Collingwood and Adelaide.
That's crucial.
You wouldn't want to meet the West Coast in a final series again.
It's a good start. Now let's move on to Will Schofield, who continues to keep his spot, remembering he got his spot by default last year, so to speak. Quality player, quality person, and all what this football club is about. Where does he rank Will Schofield? Is he the best shutdown defender since, let's go back to the former skipper Darren Glass, Ryan?
I had a long think about this one, and in a traditional sense, yes, he is, because the other guys that they've had down there, whether it be McGovern, Barris, Hearn, Shepherd, they are defenders and they are close checking defenders, but in that traditional full-back role, Yeah, he probably is. And there is a long line of great Eagles fullbacks. Michael Brennan was fantastic, Ashley McIntosh was great, and of course Darren Glass. Will Schofield is not in that class. He would be the first to say that. But he is a fantastic close-checking defender. If you've got a guy like Tex Walker, if you've got a beast up forward this weekend, Aaron Norton, I reckon you'd love to have Will Schofield. So he has carved out a fantastic career just based on what he has as a pure talent. He's not as talented as a McIntosh or a Glass, but the work he puts in, it puts him in that area.
He's trusted, and when he's out there, you know that Schofield's going to get the job done. None bigger than the job that he did last year's grand final. Probably will never play a better game than that, and it doesn't really matter if he does. But the thing is with Schofield, and if you are naive and you looked at his performances in the waffle, you didn't watch the game, but you saw his stats and it said 7 or 8 touches, Schofield, you'd be thinking, oh, geez, Scoey's in not good form. But the thing is those 7 or 8 touches he does in the AFL. He plays on the best forward in the waffle. He plays on the best forward now in the AFL, and time again, he gets the job done. That's why he's trusted, and that's why he's one of the best shutdown defenders in the competition at the moment.
You speak a lot of words on the rundown. We're here for AGL. But when you use the word he's trusted, 2 words, that's as succinct as you've answered a question, and you are absolutely spot on.
Thank you.
Because you... because you know...
What he's saying is he could have just left it at that.
No, I was happy with that. But you built on it. But the fact is you started so good, it's almost like you've done some homework. Alrighty, 4 wins in a row. They're on a roll. Adam Simpson has laid down the gauntlet to his midfield in particular to take the stress off, won the forward line the way the ball was coming in, and the back line being under siege. Embers, let me ask you. Now, let's put to bed the John Worsfold medalist that we spoke about earlier in the year, because Tom Barrish's selection's been injured ever since. Who has been the best player, probably coming out of the midfield, over the last month where they've been winning?
So out of midfield?
Well, everywhere, but it's going to be midfielder, surely.
Well, no, I don't think so.
Oh, hello, here we go.
No, I think, for me, the best player at the moment has been the skipper, Shannon Hurn. I think Shannon Hurn, with all the pressure that West Coast have been under by potentially not being at their absolute best.
In the last month,
his leadership down back, his leadership, the way that he finds the football, he's the strongest person out on the ground. He doesn't lose one-on-ones. He uses the football better than anyone in the competition, and that's highlighted by the fact that he's ranked 1 in the competition for disposal efficiency. He does not give the ball back to you, and I think that he has been the person for mine that has gelled this club together and been enormous, and I think he would be winning the John Worsfold medal right now.
Hold there, don't even answer the question. Can we rewind the tape where I said you did some homework and you were succinct? The question was, over the last month...
He's been huge over the last month.
Ryan.
You're wrong. He is leading. He is leading the Worsfold
2 words.
medal. There's my 2 words. You're wrong. He is probably leading the Worsfold medal, but that wasn't the question.
Correct.
As Gossage said, the last month there are 2 guys that are very hard to split. They're both midfielders. It's Luke Shuey and it's Elliot Yeo.
Shannon Hurn's on your mind, isn't he?
Oh, you've got him gunshot.
If you look at their numbers, and I'm not going to run over all of them, but both of those guys in disposals, tackles, clearances, contested possessions have gone through the roof. Yeo in particular, the one stat that is going to give it to him is that he's gone from averaging 4 tackles a game in the first 6 to 12. 12.
His last 2 weeks, he's had 30 tackles.
Yes, the pair of them in the last month averaged 20 tackles combined. That's insane. 15 clearances combined. 27 combined contested possessions. Both of those guys have been the reason that they've hit the switch. And it becomes something that came from that. Let's tweak the midfield. And I'm not blaming Chris Marston for the problems of earlier, but it was a balance issue. Once Marston has left the side, it's freed everybody up to do what they do best. Yeo and Shuey have spent far more time in the middle. Their roles have changed slightly. They're tackling like beasts. For me, it's Elliot Yeo, but Luke Shuey, very unlucky.
I think the Marston's irrelevant. I think what Shuey and Yeo have done
is not irrelevant.
No, because Shuey, what they've done is they've gone, you know what, we have been below our best. Okay, I think early in the season, those 2 players in particular were below their best. Now their standards are very high, and now they're actually showing what they're capable of. And it's been those 2 players in particular, with the pressure that they've been able to put on with those tackles, but their clearance work to be able to start winning supply. West Coast have struggled with supply. They've struggled to win disposal, and they've struggled to get the ball inside forward 50. When you've got the most potent forward line in the competition, you want forward. Supply, yes. And that's the difference in the last few weeks.
But when you
those
remove
2 players,
Chris Marston, a player who was clogging up a spot slot in the midfield, essentially.
He was an outsider. You can't compare him to those inside
but
mids.
what it does is it changes all of the rotations. You know this better than anyone. If there was a game when you were spending half the game on the half-back flank or the half-forward flank,
I would have liked to start in the middle.
You would need it in the middle. Exactly. This is the thing. It's all about a balance. And unfortunately, there was one too many mids because they were trying to squeeze Sheed, Gaff, Marston, Chewy, Yo, Hutchings, everyone into that mix. It's one too many. Since they've shifted, the whole thing has changed. It's not about Chris Marston, the individual. It's about balance in the team.
Agree. Yo's been the best over the last month. There's little doubt about that for the Worsfold medal. Don't disagree that I think Shannon Hearn has probably been the overall best player. When they were up against it, he was the one who was the glue keeping them
I didn't
together.
really listen to your question. I was just thinking Shannon Hearn's been playing really good footy.
Dom Sheed, 20 touches and no goals against Geelong.
Oh, he's out of form.
And then 32, 28, 33, 31 and a goal a game.
I would have included him in that, but he's not tackling. And it's not necessarily his game, but I wanted to highlight the inside work of those two guys in particular.
Let's talk about the next month then. 4 games, of course. None of the current teams that they're up against are in the 8. We're talking about the Dogs here, of course, Sydney away, Essendon here, and then Hawthorn at the MCG. Which one of those games poses the most danger to West Coast?
At the start of the year, I would have said Sydney at the SCG, but they just haven't been themselves.
They're getting better.
They are getting better. It's still a danger game, but the one that I would circle there is Hawthorn at the MCG, and that's because at their best, Hawthorn is still a very good side. Alistair Clarkson, we know he's a genius who will come up with a game plan. And funnily enough, a lot of the positives that were in the Eagles game plan that won them a flag last year are sort of hybrid games of what Hawthorn did really well in their era. So don't be surprised if that game comes very, very close, and don't be surprised if the Hawks win it.
The most important game they've got coming up is this week right now. The Western Bulldogs.
Oh,
I'll
right.
tell you why.
You'll play your roles, stick to your
I'll tell you
structures.
why.
Oh,
Because
my God.
everyone expects West Coast to win really easily, and the Dogs are in, not very good form, and they're not going to come over here. And I'll tell you why. If West Coast are thinking about Sydney in Sydney, thinking about Hawthorn in Hawthorn already, the Dogs will come over and they will run and gun and they will put West Coast to the sword if the Eagles aren't prepared for this game. This is the only game that matters for the West Coast Eagles right now. Don't worry about Sydney. That's an Oz kick ground. That ground doesn't count. It's small. If they lose there, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to play Sydney there in a final because they're no good at the moment, all right? So let's worry about the Western Bulldogs right now this weekend. And if the Eagles can knock them off, which I expect that they will, then we worry about the other games next week.
Somewhere Adam Simpson is nodding watching this. The only game that matters is the one coming up. That's very
right,
cliche.
mate.
And Adam Simpson's not on the panel, so that's why we've got a different opinion. Now, there's 10 new faces, of course, and we talk about the Bulldogs. There's 10 new faces to the team that travelled here last time and got flogged. So let's forget about what Bulldogs team is coming over. But it is the SCG. Not one, I've done my stats, I think, you are the stats king, I've done my stats, not one current day West Coast Eagle has played in a winning game against Sydney at the SCG.
No, that would be right.
So what is the problem?
And that was the reason
Because it's an Oz kick ground. It doesn't count.
So that makes it a danger game. That answers the question. It's a difficult ground to win at.
Stumped.
Yeah. I didn't listen to your question that time.
I am sure earlier in this episode of The Rundown, hello AGL, we're sorry for sponsoring this segment while Andrew Embley's on it, but I was paying you your dues for doing your homework. And then, since then, you completely dropped the ball. No wonder you weren't involved in the midfield at all and kept out on a half-forward flank. So you're tipping West Coast to win this game regardless of your belief that it's going to be a tough one?
West Coast will win. I think they'll win most of them coming up.
West Coast will win pretty well, I think. But I'm very excited to see what Aaron Norton can do back home. He's had a fantastic season.
I like Big Tim English.
Yeah, they're both very good.
He's a quality player. There's been a little bit of talk that he's, like Dean Cox like now. You don't want to put pressure on him to be as good as Dean Cox, but they rate him so highly at the Dogs. He's going to be a quality player.
Very skillful for a ruckman.
Yeah.
Nice work, boys. Good fun. Ryan Daniels from 7 News, Andrew Embley, former West Coast Eagle. Solid. Lost your way a little bit towards the end. Thanks to AGL for all your energy needs. The West Coast Eagles take on the Western Bulldogs. It is going to be a big one. We'll catch you next week.